Welcome back into the Derby form, joined by Luke Radich and Michael Coleman. And we're going to have a look back at some of the best rides in the New Zealand Derby. And Michael, the first ride that we want to talk about is Zonda. Now we go back to Vinnie Colgan, Roger James with Zonda. This was back in 1997. This was, as we all know, Zonda was a brilliant horse. But what was one of the reasons why you thought this was one of the rides of the Derby?
I just thought that Vinny rode him supremely confident. He just pulled out at the half mile, went round him, and he rode him like he was the best horse in the race. Took bad luck out of play, and he proved it. He was so brilliant, Zonda. I was riding Crimson in this race, trying to follow him at the half mile, but about 5 other jockeys were trying to do the same thing, so I got smashed and lost a few lengths and got home nicely for fifth. But Vinny just was supremely confident on this horse, and he just rode him that way.
It was I totally agree. It was such a good ride because the overall time was not fast, and he must have been getting worried partway through the race when the horse was back in the field. He made that mid-race move, and it was the winning of the race. Class prevailed, as Michael says, and I kind of think too, if he'd sat back, as good as Zonda was, look, he might still have won because he came into that race, he was winning his races by settling back and coming with that brilliant turn of foot that he had. He might still have won, but he might just as easily have flashed home late for third, like Platinum Invader did a couple of years ago or something like that. So I guess you could say it's easy when you're riding a horse as superior as Zonda was to those, but I don't think it always is. And initiative, that was the key.
Let's go to 2011 now. Jimmy Choo. This was trained by John Barry and ridden by Jonathan Riddell. And Michael, as we bring you in, this was in very testing conditions, but Jimmy Choo still proved that he was the best 3-year-old.
Yeah, he was definitely the best 3-year-old that year. 2000 Guineas winner and Waikato Guineas as well. Jonathan just rode him so nicely this day. He just waited and sucked through for all the runs from about just behind midfield, and he just got all the right runs coming into the race without doing any work, and the horse just proved too good. And he probably appreciated the wet track better than others, but Jonathan had a lot of pressure on his shoulders this day, and he gave him a great ride, and the best horse won on the day. So, it probably might have been the first time I've ever seen Jonathan Riddell smile. So he looked pretty happy after this one.
You were on the third horse in this race, I believe, Michael.
Yeah, on level was good for Murray Baker. He got back a long way, and I could see Jimmy Choo in my sights, at the 800, and on the level made ground pretty good. And at one stage I thought he might be a chance of winning, but he probably just had a little bit too much work to do.
Yeah, it was a case of class prevailing here, wasn't it? Because I don't think for a moment that Jimmy Choo was a pure 1.5 mile horse, let alone in testing conditions, but he was just too good for them.
Yeah, well, Historian was second too, and he wasn't a true 2,400 metre horse, but he had a lot of class, and that just helped him to get that trip.
Well, that was the slogging finish in the end of the Vodafone Derby in 2011. Let's take you now to what was a supermare, and she was aided by a class ride by James McDonald. Michael Coleman, I'm talking about Silent Achiever in 2012.
Yeah, I just remember this race, and it was a pretty stacking race, and the pace came right out of the race before the 1,200 metre mark, and Macca just made the decision to creep forward and put himself close to the pace and be right there when the sprint came back on again. And Silent Achiever was, we knew how good she is now, but this was probably the start of it, and she was just superior, a class mare, and did a great job on the day. But Macca, he just made all the right moves in the race, moved into it in the right time, and was too good.
Yeah, beautiful ride. Totally agree. She was about $2 this day. She came into it having already beaten the boys, and even better things were to come. The sadly late Silent Achiever passed away before her time not that long ago.
Was she almost that benchmark now, Luke, in terms of the fillies that need to be winning this race? I mean, yeah. I sort of see her in the present time benchmark anyway, with her taking this race out in 2012.
I think so, isn't she? Without looking through the records in front of me, I might be overlooking someone else, but certainly of the last 10 to 15 years, I think she's the best staying 3-year-old filly, wouldn't you say?
We want to bring you in, Michael, just to talk about that winning feeling. I mean, this is the classic race, the New Zealand Derby. Just how good is it to be able to take the race out?
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. It's a feeling you'll never forget. It was my 2 wins in the race were special. I was lucky to be able to win those 2 races, and I'll never forget that. But you know, sometimes after the line, it's relief. The pressure's gone. Although with Excellent, there wasn't a huge amount of pressure because he only became in his 3rd favourite behind Cheval Troy. But and Cut the Cake was unexpected. But going to these races, there's always a little bit of nerves if you think you've got you know, a decent chance of the race or a live chance. So any of these Group 1s are special, but to me the Derby is just number 1.
And around the race, Michael, I mean, look, any race, any big race, you know, you're doing your homework to be able to find what positions you want to be and what horses you want to be following. But is there just that extra edge about trying to make sure you can get this ride 100% right in your head pre-race before heading into a Derby? There just must be something about leading into a Derby, especially if you have a plum ride leading into the race.
Yeah, well, that's right. You know, you're hoping to have a plan going out there, and hopefully you can stick to that plans. But sometimes once the barrier's open, it can all go out the door pretty quickly. So, you know, it all helps if you've got a horse with tactical speed, or you've got something that's got to be put to sleep. It makes the job a little bit harder, but you've got a plan going out there, and hopefully you're able to execute it.
And Luke, what is it for you about the New Zealand Derby? Why does it so much sit with you as one of those races that you love to digest, and also, you know, go back over replays of previous years and also try and find the winner for the next running of the New Zealand Derby? What is it about the race for you?
I think it's a combination of things. For me anyway, one of those things is the history. It's a very, very long running race. It's older even than the Melbourne Cup. It raced through both of the 2 world wars. So it's a race with immense prestige and history, and from an interest and sort of punting point of view as well, because almost invariably it's the first time any of the horses in the race have been over a distance this far. It kind of tests your punting skill, doesn't it? There's a lot more variables and nuances to look at when you're looking at races going into it than there is, say, a 2,000 metre weight for age race, where you know the approximate level of every horse at that distance in those track conditions. With the Derby, it's an unknown, and that kind of makes it fun.
And I guess that changed again, Luke, too, back in, was it 2006, when the race changed, because it was even more of a battle when it was on Boxing Day compared to where it sits now in March.
It has changed the race, and I support the move, and I think it's bedded in now. I think it's overall a good move. But at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that we probably lose a little bit by not being on Boxing Day in terms of some of the class horses that go into it. For example, this year, the 2000 Guineas, Aegon wins it. The 2nd and 3rd horses have both been sold overseas, and Aegon is now in Australia. Now, if the race had still been run on Boxing Day, I think there's every chance we'd be seeing Aegon run in the Derby. But that's basically the only negative. I think the positives do outweigh the negatives.
All right, well, big thanks to you, Luke Redditch, and also Michael Coleman, talking about the Derby form and also about the race itself this year. Looking out for what is going to be a terrific race, Michael, coming up on the weekend. Your final thoughts on the Derby as we look forward to it on the weekend?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd probably be hoping that Rocket Spade could win for my mates Andrew Scott and Lance O'Sullivan, but it's sure to be a great race. I don't think there's a standout in the race. I think it's probably one of the more even races in recent years. Probably not quite as strong. The race has fallen away a little bit this year, but I think it's going to be a good contest and an even contest, and there probably could be any of 4 or 5 that could win it.
All right, thanks for your time, Michael, and also to you, Luke Redditch, from our Auckland studio.
Thank you, Brendan.